Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're talking about several interesting things that I found at NAB 2022. It was a somewhat slow show, but I did find some really interesting things. So we're going to start with some crazy cameras and then end with something that is really, really wild and I can't wait to talk about. None of the companies we're about to talk about sponsored this video. However, this video is supported by those of you who have purchased my camera guides and LUTs. Check the link in the description to learn more, and thank you guys so much for the support. So our first thing to take a look at is these really interesting cameras from a company called Bosma. This is a Chinese camera company and they have 3 cameras that they're showing on the show floor. The first is the G1 Pro, which is a micro four thirds box style camera that shoots 8K. The B1, which is a full frame 8K broadcast camera. And then the one that really interested me was the G2, a full frame 8K cinema camera. And it looks like Zcam and Red had a baby, and that's what this G2 camera looks like. It has a top screen very similar to the Red Komodo, that little side antenna for 5G monitoring and wireless control, records 2 CFast cards, but this thing can also record externally to SSDs over USB-C, and we have several connectivity options including HDMI, SDI, audio, and power in and out, as well as a single battery plate on the back. This thing has a full frame sensor and it's going to be priced around $4,000, which is $2,000 cheaper than the Komodo, but it doesn't shoot internal RAW because Red has a patent on that. There might be external recording of RAW, but as of now, they're looking at ProRes internal recording as well as H.264 and H.265 in 422 10-bit. Their newest prototype shows an interchangeable lens mount similar to kind of the Red style mount. And like I said, the price tag is sitting at around $4,000 for this full frame camera. So pretty interesting. Don't know if it's really going to take off, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this company. Next up, we have Aputure, who released one light and talked about 2 prototype lights. First, we have the 600C, which is essentially a 600D, but with full RGB WW. This thing is crazy bright. It's kind of going up against the Airy Orbiter, which is significantly more expensive. Obviously different technologies, but a very, very bright, really colorful light with a ton of insane features. But Aputure also talked about 2 prototype lights. One was the MC Pro. So here I have the Aputure MC. The new MC Pro prototype is slightly thicker, but has a lot of cool features, including being much brighter, having a wider color temperature range. It'll have a magnetic accessory mount for adding things like grids, little soft boxes, and all kinds of fun stuff, and a kind of MagSafe connector on the bottom of the light. So that's really cool. We also saw kind of the first Aputure tube. So we already have the Amaran tubes, did a video on them, liked them a lot. But the Aputure MT line is looking to be pretty promising with insanely bright output, multiple different sizes. The only prototype they had at the show was kind of a little stick tube, but it looks like there's going to be a ton packed into these, including pixel mapping and all kinds of crazy stuff. So hopefully we'll get more information as Aputure starts to come out with that stuff. But really exciting things from Aputure. And then to wrap things up, they're doing a lot of updates to the Sidus Link app, including a huge one, which is wireless DMX. So you'll be able to take any light that has DMX control, pipe it into Sidus Link, and add that to all the other Sidus Link apps. So a lot of power with this now, and you can use any light fixture. Something else I saw on the show floor that I thought was very intriguing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs in the field, is a Thunderbolt dock / card reader from Sandisk. In short, this thing is a box that sits on your desk, has Thunderbolt JZ chaining, several different connections on the front, but it also has 4 bays for these little accessory modules. At launch, there are going to be several different card readers available for Red, CFast, CF, SD, all that kind of stuff. And these things lock into these little bays, but they can also be removed, and they have their own USB-C connection on the back. So you could pull this thing out of the dock, throw it in your laptop bag, go on set, use it there, bring it back, and just stick it back into this dock box. Pricing starts at just under $500 for the box alone, and then those little modules are around $50 to $80 each, with exception to the Red one, of course. And Sandisk told me that they're trying to open this standard up so that other manufacturers can create little modules, and I really hope we get some kind of like SSDs, but I really like what they're doing with this box, the integrated power supply. It's really slick and super well made when you see and feel it in person. Next up, we have Deity, and they came out with a really interesting tiny box, which they are calling the Timecode Box. And essentially, you can get up to 20 of these things linked up together, perfectly in sync. You can use your phone to instantly sync them all together, or if you're more of a buttons kind of guy, there is a little screen on these little boxes. And in short, you can use these to connect all kinds of different timecode based devices together and have perfect sync, which is great. When it comes to the clock drift over time, you're looking at up to 1 frame per 24 hours. So they're going to be pretty accurate, especially for something that's 12 hours or less. And the fact that you can resync from one phone as long as the devices are within 250 feet is pretty slick. And if you have a camera that doesn't have a timecode input, you can use a 3.5mm jack, and it'll essentially put the timecode information on the left channel and use the built-in microphone on the little timecode box to be your scratch audio on the right channel of your audio, which is really, really slick. Pricing is going to be $200, but at launch, when it comes to the pre-order price, you'll be able to save $30, and I believe it's shipping in June, which is pretty sweet. Next up, we have Kondor Blue, which has this really slick $200 shoulder mount with some really fascinating features. First, the pad itself is Velcro, so you can remove it. It's machine washable, and it has a little air input, so you can actually pump it up or pump it down to whatever kind of cushioning you want, which is really interesting. The thing is loaded with mounting points and it has a quick release 15mm attachment point, so you can pop it on and off a rig without having to slide it onto your rods. And the whole thing is rotatable, so if you want to go 90 degrees, rest the whole thing on your knees, super easy to do, and just a really well thought out shoulder pad. So if you're looking for something like that, Kondor Blue has your back for around $200. Then we have Atomos, which really surprised me this year. I was not expecting to be as impressed as I was with what they came out with. So here's the deal. There are 2 new physical products. The first is the Atomos Connect. It's a little device that can go on the back of your Ninja or Ninja Plus video recorders. And without getting too complex, it essentially takes all their other little adapters that they sold and puts them into one box and adds a couple antennas, which allows you to use this thing on your camera and live stream from the camera, or send proxies up to the Atomos cloud, which we'll get to here in a second, and it's mind-boggling, so stick with me here. This Atomos Connect device also has an RJ45 jack and SDI input, which is fantastic. The second device Atomos released is the Atomos Shogun Connect. This is a 7-inch Shogun video recorder that has all the stuff we just talked about from the Atomos Connect built in. So Atomos Connect goes on the back of your small recorders. The Atomos Shogun Connect is a dedicated, all built-in device. Then we have the Atomos Cloud Studio, which has 3 primary tools or features, including Atomos Capture to Cloud, Atomos Stream, and Atomos Live Production. Atomos Capture to Cloud allows you to record on your Atomos recorder, but also send proxies to the cloud where they can be transcoded and sent to a ton of different devices and do a lot of really cool things. But the main idea is you're recording on here, but it's also the second you hit record, starts sending it up to the cloud. When you hit end, you have a perfectly in sync copy sent to the cloud as an H.265 file. And then if you want, you can have that transcoded in the cloud and spit out to any software eventually. At launch, it's going to be focusing on Frame IO, but you'll also be able to do things like send it to Dropbox and other stuff. So the point is, you could be out on production, and as you're filming and recording, every time you hit end on the recorder, your editor can start cutting, creating selects, and then at the end of the day, you can take your nice files, your high quality recordings, whether that be RAW on your recorder or ProRes, and reconnect that stuff in your editor, and you're done. So that's the first tool in this Atomos Cloud Studio. The second is Stream, and this will take your recorder and turn it into a streaming device. So without a computer, without any crazy stuff, you can essentially stream directly from your camera through this device to YouTube and Twitch and all those different places, which is really cool. And then the third tool in the Atomos Cloud Studio is insane, and it is Atomos Live Production. In short, you can connect a ton of different Atomos, cameras and recorders and even iOS devices like your phone to the cloud, and then on an iPad or a phone or a computer, access some switching software, which will take all of those inputs and stream it to whatever you want. And the whole thing about this is everything's in the cloud. In Atomos's booth, they had iPad Pros hooked up and they had the software pulled up, and it really did feel like I was switching a physically connected camera and network and everything. But all of this was done over the cloud. So when you tap to switch camera angles, you're actually just sending a signal to the cloud, which is where the switching is really done. What's wild is you could have cameras all over the world with Atomos devices on them, sending the feed to the cloud, and have someone in a completely different place switching on an iPad or something like that. and someone else or a whole team of people all around the world watching the entire stream, program, or multi-view on an Apple TV. So really, anyone who has access to an iPhone, an iPad, an Apple TV can get this app and be able to access, log in, and see all the cameras. And if that wasn't enough, you can set up TalkBack on all of this. So each of these Atomos devices has a mic input and a headphone jack. So all of your camera operators could be wearing headphones and have a little microphone clip to them, and they could be talking to the director at the iPad, and he can be talking to them. The software for this whole insanity is done by another company, and they did an amazing job. It's so snappy. You can go in, change all of your audio settings, control TalkBack. It's nuts. So that is Atomos live production, and the whole pricing for all of this stuff is dependent on what you want to do and how many of those tools you actually want to use. And with that, let's get to one of the craziest things I saw on the show floor, and it is the Tilta Zombie Rig. Now, this thing might seem like a joke, but when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. In short, the Zombie Rig is kind of like an easy rig for boom operators. It's a vest that you can throw on. The boom is like a scorpion tail that goes over you, and you control the microphone's movements with either a Nucleus M or Nucleus Nano. As of right now, this is a prototype, but I think a product like this could save so many people's backs, arms, and bodies over the years. So a very interesting prototype, and looking forward to seeing what happens with this over time. And I love seeing tools that allow us to perform our craft and to take a lot of the beating off of our bodies, because this industry is not kind over time. And with that, we've covered everything I saw at NAB that I enjoyed. I want to quickly say thank you guys so much for those of you who stopped me on the show floor. I love meeting you guys, and it was really encouraging to hear from you, get feedback from you, and just talk to people on the other side of the camera for once. So that's going to wrap up this video. Stay tuned for more reviews up on the channel. We've got a lot of interesting stuff coming. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video.